Hello, my friend. This is Heather. Welcome. I was making a face into the camera. That's why I started laughing. Welcome to the Back to Me podcast, where we talk about all the things to make your life more fabulous than it already is, and maybe find you some ways to get unstuck if you feel like it's not so fabulous. And today I have another awesome human being. We are talking with Joe Singleton, who wrote a book. Look, I even have it right here on my desk. Maradon, Buddha Rising, The Awakening. I'm going to be 100% honest. I'm not done yet, but I am reading it, and it's super interesting. I've even got the little marks down on the page. Joe, my friend, welcome. So nice to see you.
Hey, Heather, it's fabulous to see you too. I always love doing these because I'm way down here in South Texas and you're up in Canada.
Way up in Canada.
It is, it's just so neat to be able to connect with like-minded people all over the world. I've done one in Nigeria, one in the UK,
Wow.
and a couple in Canada now, and it's just, that's part of this whole kind of awakening thing. It's really cool to be able to connect from outside our own kind of cultures and borders, and it's just really great to be talking to you down here. I'm envious, so you guys probably have cooler weather than we got right now.
I don't know. Maybe not today. We just had a thunderstorm roll through trying to break the humidity. It didn't. I don't know if it did it or not.
I love thunderstorms. I'll trade with you.
Right. All right, cool. When we chatted last about coming on the podcast, we were talking about how you ended up writing the book. And I thought it was super interesting how all these pieces kind of formed and started to come together. So maybe you can share a little bit of that, because before we get into the book, because I thought that was like fascinating.
It is interesting. And the more enlightened I become, the more I understand, that, the universe, when it puts things in front of us, it's for a reason. I don't believe a lot in chance, anymore.
Right.
Even fate, that kind of thing. I also read tarot cards, and over and over, I see that. And I used to get just blown away by the position of two cards facing each other and what we're talking about and all that kind of stuff. And I say I don't get amazed by it anymore, but I really still do. But it's weird because I'm super blown away, but still I don't understand. But to answer your question, this journey started out really cool. I was really heavy into existential philosophy. I was trying to find the answers to life through existential philosophy. And there's a lot of great stuff in there. Friedrich Nietzsche, Jean-Paul Sartre, Simone de Beauvoir, all of that is amazing stuff. And you can really see the kind of the nuts and bolts of existence, right? Almost it borders into psychology, what happens in our minds, and I ran across, I got the opportunity through one of my older professors, and she was trying to finish a book, and she knew I was a tarot reader and had some ties with philosophy and tarot together. So thankfully, she thought I was a good somebody to help her edit. I got a chance to be an assistant editor on her book, and I spent about 2 years with her doing that, and I saw her kind of put everything together and put the book together. But one of my jobs as the editor was to track down all of the footnotes, right, and make sure everything was right and classify them and all that kind of stuff. And one of her philosophers she used was the Buddha, right? And there was a book called What the Buddha Taught by Rahul Wapola, and it's basically a commentary on the Dhammapada. Buddhism has blossomed into a lot of things, like many religions. What it really started out has just become something completely different.
Yeah.
And this book is cool. It's called What the Buddha Actually Taught, and it's actually what, where all of this started. And I kept seeing these quotes from him. I'm like, this is amazing. So when I was working on it, I bought the book on Amazon. It came to me the next day, and I read it in a day and a half. And it's basically the Dhammapada. And it opened up just so many things in my mind, all of the things I had been looking for, that I thought this, there's never going to really be an answer to anything. Well, I found the answer here in the Dhammapada. I've studied all of the world's religions, philosophy, and all that. And it really seems to me, it's the one thing that stands to reason, right? The Four Noble Truths say we all suffer, right? We all know we suffer inside. All things pass. Suffering too passes. Mindfulness and understanding that suffering too shall pass. It sounds very basic and easy, but if we can cross that chasm in our minds, it really opens a lot of things. The concept of reincarnation is heavy in Eastern spirituality. And when you think about that, I was just writing about this the other day. When we put the current life in context with past lives and future lives to come based on karma, and our evolution or devolution, it kind of stops time, right? All of the pressure we have of this one lifetime we've got to get, that stops, literally stops, and your mind totally expands. And when you put the karma together with that, samsara, and the whole concept of our world and all those things, it just, it really came together for me. And I had this one line, in the very center of that wheel of karma, there's a pig biting the tail of a peacock who bites the tail of a snake. This is ignorance, envy, and hatred or anger, all biting each other's tail, going around the middle of this circle, and it blossoms into this huge thing called samsara, which is the world we all live in. And there's multiple levels and things like that. But there was this line that came in my head that, I want you to be just like me, or I want to be just like you. And we're all kind of chasing each other's tails, biting the other tail that bites us, and we never let go, right?
Right.
Kind of that thing about the Four Noble Truths is letting things pass and letting things go. It really opened my mind, and it sparked me to write this book. And we've had a lot of fun with it, a lot of good success. And I'm working on my second book now, which is kind of an expansion of this. So it's like peeling an onion, right? That the more enlightened we become, that this whole new level opens up, and it just keeps opening and opening and opening. So it's a really cool thing to write about. And this book, Mardon Buddha Rise, is really designed to be kind of an introduction to both the concept of samsara. We ask ourselves, especially now, why is the world so messed up? We just can't figure it out. And we come to these situations where we say, well, that's just life.
Right.
That's kind of a cop-out, right? That's not life. It's a
total cop-out.
We're here to be something much more than this. And most of us don't do anything about it. In fact, 99.9% of us don't do it about it. When you find out what an awakening actually is, it's a very rare and precious thing for us all to find. There's a little metaphor we can talk about later that the Buddha uses, but it's almost like, I call it Powerball of the mind. It's like hitting the lottery, right? Finding your awakening, because everything changes. However, like Plato's prisoner in the cave, right? Once we find out that it's not the images on the wall, it's the sun through crystals, I made my way out, goes back into the cave, tells everybody, hey, this is, and they kick him out. There's a kind of a lonely path that comes with it. So, but it's a lot of fun, and it's very interesting. And, my mission, I have become enlightened, I feel, and my mission is to help others become enlightened. And we all discover along the way. I don't believe our learning and our progressive ever ends. I think it's just like this expanding thing. So it covers a lot of cool subjects, but that's how it all started.
Right. Yeah. I like a million questions, of course, were popping through my head as you were talking, like, but what with this? And then, so let's start with this. So I'm sure you know the phrase, before enlightenment, chop wood and carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood and carry water. So no matter how high you rise, if you're still in the 3D, then you still have the things to do in the 3D, right? So I guess that's why you're still writing, and you're still creating, and you're still sharing the knowledge to help. So I think that we're reaching the point where they might not kick you out of the cave. Some people might go with you out of the cave.
That's happening. I can feel that happening, but it's very interesting you said that. It made me think about the concept of nirvana, right? Buddhism has split into two ways. There's the Theravadic and the Mahayana Buddhists. The Mahayanas say the Bodhisattva will come back 1,000,000 lifetimes if he or she has to, until everybody can be all enlightened together and go to nirvana together. The Buddha did something very different. It almost says the only person we can control or help or destine is ourselves, right?
Right.
And he found his way and left, right? The concept of my book, Mardon Buddha Rise, The Awakening, is getting out of this realm of sin. This is not our home, right? We try to fix and mold this place to be wrong. Everybody wants peace in the world and to fix everything. The world, that's not what this world is. It's always going to be messed up, right? It's our job to kind of find our way out. over time, our enlightenment can help others. Yet just that vision kind of nirvana is something that once envisioned in our mind, like you said, we're here between in the physical duality. We don't have to make any choices at all. Where all choices are at once, right? Kind of that joining of the collective unconsciousness.
Joe, you're frozen.
But just kind of
wait. No, you're frozen. Okay, so you might go, what the heck's happening? Well, we had a little technical glitch, and I just leave those in there. So we're going to start this big, long explanation again. Joe, you're on.
Yes, that's a beautiful thing. Technology, we've got backup. So, so we were talking about your quote of chopping wood and carrying water before enlightenment and after enlightenment. And it kind of reminds me of a concept, this concept of nirvana, right? Once we kind of get we open our minds a little bit and see this vision that there is kind of a different way of thinking, acting, and existing, and almost like I call it a ladder of ascension for the mind, right? We're like on the first step, just discovering something like the truths of Dharma, the Four Noble Truths, all of these things, the three jewels of Buddha, the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, right? That's a good kind of way of looking at it. We first find our image of say a deity that resonates with you. The Buddha's always smiling, right? It's a very comforting kind of thing. Then we discover Dharma, the truths that, what the Buddha said. And then the Sangha is like, what we practice. We have a new kind of bubble to do our wood chopping and our water bearing in, right? And kind of filtering out, things that, ways we may have lived our lives in the past and realize now, I'm an angry person all the time. 4 or 5 years ago, Heather, I kind of stopped and said, why am I so angry all the time? I realized, all of this crap I'm watching on TV and, news and politics, sports, your team's going to lose half the time. And, rarely do they ever win at all, right? And so, you know what I did? I quit watching TV, man. And that changed my life, because there's all of this stuff goes, if something really bad or important happens, you're going to hear about it, right? Everybody starts talking about it all over the street. But
yeah,
you can turn off the TV this year and tune back in 3 years from now, and the exact same thing is going on, the same back and forth. And it just reinforces this concept of samsara. But, the kind of the concept of the title of my book, Mara Dawn, Buddha Rise. Mara is kind of the Lord of this world of samsara, right? This kind of trickster magician kind of that always keeps us, we take one step forward and he takes one step back, and we never seem to make any progress, right? Buddha Rise is our understanding of Dharma, a whole different way of looking at the world. And we have two suns in the world now, right? Where we had one sun, now we have two, Mara Dawn, Buddha Rise. So that's kind of the awakening, is a new understanding of, what we're all doing here. What is our purpose? Where are we going? It's a beautiful thing to be able to find that. It can be life-changing.
So it's interesting because I've been listening to some people who their philosophy is, everything in the universe is a spark of a divine source of some, whatever name you want to give it. And that your little piece of that spark has come here to have those experiences of what it's like to be here. And then you leave again. So it's like, I'm thinking about how those would fit together. Maybe when you've had all the experiences that you're meant to experience is when you've ticked, and I don't like box ticking, but when you've ticked all of your boxes, you're like, okay, I'm done. I'm going to go somewhere else now.
Exactly. That's and that ties in with there's a few things that in my new book, I'm just finished a section that's very close to what you're saying. The difference between Eastern spirituality, Hinduism, Buddhism, as opposed to, say, Islam, Christianity, some of the other major, religions or spiritual systems in the world is there's a few things that Eastern spirituality has. Chakras, right? Reincarnation, karma, right? That this kind of, these are things that they don't talk about it. So this almost becomes what I'm calling a science of the mind, a spiritual science, right? You'll often hear the Dalai Lama say stuff like most religions speak of faith, right? I call this blind faith. He says Buddhism uses reason, right? Well, we have to use our own minds to reason our way out of this, as the saying, you know that old saying, Jesus, take the wheel, or God, it's in your hands right now. I can't do anything about it, right? It's more of like these foxhole prayers are just, they don't do a lot for us in the long run. We have to use our reason. We're actually one little sense, that one little spark you say, we're almost like one little sense in the finger of God, right? We're part of that.
Right.
You go way back to the Hindu traditions, Brahma is basically God, right? And I don't know if maybe it was boredom, but, envisioned this illusory world and got trapped in it. That's us, right? And we have to kind of find our way back out. To kind of go back where you were talking about that these experiences we see over it, when you think about reincarnation, it's based on our karma, right? It's a ladder, right? If we do positive and helpful things in this lifetime, we're born into a better existence as we go. We retain more of that memory.
Right.
When we do negative and things that are degenerative to the world, we go backwards, right? And it becomes harder and harder to find that. So, as we go along this ladder of ascension, we start to see these things over and over because we've been here before, right?
Right.
And it's exactly like you say, what I almost think an awakening is where I'm at now on this, and this is a big part of my next book, is that I often think to myself, I tell my better half all the time, I said, I've been here, I'm around here a long time, and I'm tired, I'm ready to do something else than this, please. If you read in the first part of my book, Friedrich Nietzsche has a very famous challenge to humanity. I love Friedrich Nietzsche. He calls himself the master of ceremonies of our existence. He has a good humor, right? But one of his most famous, philosophical treatises is called Eternal Recurrence. And he basically asks you a question, every human being, would it be that you had the chance to come back and live this exact same life you're living right now over and over again and again for the rest of eternity? Would you do it? You ask most people that, what would you say? Would you want to come back, Heather, and be Heather and do this whole thing all over again exactly as you're doing it?
I'd probably opt for an upgrade.
Yeah, most of us would, right? That question is designed to scare the hell out of us, right? But from his view, here's where I make a lot of comparisons to Nietzsche and the Buddha, right? Western philosophy and Eastern spirituality. The difference is Nietzsche just kind of said this is just kind of a random world, and we just have to embrace this fire and live every day as if this is to the greatest of our potential, right? With almost no landing spot, right? Dharma gives us a landing spot. It gives us this vision of nirvana, something like a heaven, where we can grow and ascend, but not in one lifetime. It's not with, we screw up 50 times and do good 49 times, so we go down and it's not that, right? It's a progression over time. It makes more sense, right? I often say a lot, things don't travel from a straight line from one point to another in the universe. They go around in circles over and over like a spiral.
Yeah.
Right? That's us in our lifetimes over this.
Well, even if you look at representation of, we're circling around the sun, but the sun is also moving. So everything is always spiraling as we move, right?
And if you look at a lot of these old, very popular now, these old monoliths and pyramids, they're finding out that, tens, hundreds of thousands of years ago, they were tracking the sun over, we only live 100 years, but they're tracking timelines of thousands and thousands of years, right? It's an advancement. There's always that little wobble on the axis, right? That changes it. I just wrote something called the definition of infinity, right? And I had this theory
that the wobble.
For an eon, we live like this, and then we reach that point we want to get away, and for another eon, we go to nirvana, right? We develop our own galaxy, and then kind of like Brahma, right? We desire, we start to lean back towards that physical sensation, that desire for that. And perhaps that's how it goes. And that little wobble just keeps things moving through
It's like the
time
Kali
forever.
Yuga, right? Like
Yes.
all of that stuff. We're always coming in and out of those cycles.
And in the end, when you think about it like that, nature was kind of right? We have to learn to enjoy the journey, which is the hardest thing for me, because I grew up in the USA in the 70s and 80s, and we want immediate gratification. That's what we want, right? The universe doesn't move like that. It moves much slower, and we have to kind of run across these lessons you're talking about. Very interesting too. I could cite, and I'll write about it in my next book, but 3 or 4 things that have just happened this year that were just devastating, right? But as I'm going through them, I know, hey, this is something that's being presented to me because I need to work on it. It's a mirror. We see ourselves. Oh my God, I'm a thief, or I'm a liar. You know what I'm saying?
This isn't right.
If we are to ascend, we have to fix these things about us. We're broken. This is a broken. We're caught in a net of samsara. Patanjali says, like birds from a net, the wise are led out of here once they conquer Mara's train. So I believe your theory is right, and we do. I hate to say that this is like a school for what I hate that, but there are things that we have to learn.
We can use a different word.
I was going to say, if this is a spiritual school, then we have some really bad teachers, right?
Well, here's my thing about that. This just popped into my head. So I was thinking about like religions. You kind of brushed by it quickly, but I think a lot of religions do take away personal responsibility, and a lot of our world right now takes away personal, like being responsible for yourself. You can blame someone else. And you are the master of your domain, and you decide how you want to be in the world and where you're going with that. So then what was I going to say after that? What did you just say?
Well, what you just said is really a huge thing, because it's that split between what the Buddha taught and what most Buddhists believe now, is that we have to take everybody with us. It's selfish to just take ourselves and leave, right? That's what the Buddha did. But the Buddha knew that's all we can do, right? He left behind the Dharma for us, a raft, so we can find it. Buddha simply means awakened, or awakened one. We all have the potential to assume Buddha nature and become Buddhas ourselves. That's the goal, right? Buddha means awakened one. One means awakened one, And if you read my book and you see really what samsara is, it's a very herd instinct minded thing, from politics, from our education, even our family units, the way we're brought up and taught. One of the great Manjushri, one of the great Bodhisattvas, or it may have been Tsongkhapa, I can't remember, but said, love and cared for us as much as our parents did. If they weren't teaching us these ways of Dharma, then that's not us, right? We've been brought up incorrectly in many senses, and it's not their fault.
That's what they learned.
99% of the people in the world are on a path different than the path of ascension, right? And
now I have to tell you, when I started your book, I was like, man, I don't know if I can read this. He's a bummer.
Yes, it's funny. I had a preface that I took out. I had a sample reader, right?
Yeah.
And he said, my God, you've got to say something like there is a better way or something. He was worried people would read this and just,
not get past. I knew I knew it had to pick up, because come on, seriously.
I tell people, get through the first 35 pages, and it's the greatest sin of any author is to lose your audience in the first couple chapters, right? Unfortunately, the way that this book and the process folds out, it has to be that way in the beginning. And I did my best to kind of bring it up. I shortened it a little bit, believe me, but it's important, right, that we understand. The concept that I really build on is whether you're Elon Musk or somebody who's homeless right now, and all of us in between. We all suffer the human condition, right? No matter how much we have or don't have, we all have fear and anxiety that hold us back from what I call that what does our heart truly want? We've got these dreams and desires in our heart, but all of the things around us tell us you can't do that. You've got to do
Right.
this because you've got these bills and you've got this house and you've got these kids and you've got these cars and you've got all this stuff, right? All of the stuff is like chains that bond us, right? And we've got to learn to let go of things. Once I've learned, I'm 57 years old now, and I did the American dream. We got up to the high apex, and then when you start going down, you still got these kind of lifestyle and bills, but you're making this much money, right? And you have to make adjustments. And I have found like multiple wet jackets. The more you take off, the more stuff that I let go, the freer I become, right? And that's a physical metaphor for the concept of Dharma and Nirvana. If you look at what the Buddha did, right? He was a prince being groomed to be the king. He left the kingdom and ultimately became, in those days, a beggar with a yellow robe and a bowl under a tree, right? And he found enlightenment and changed the world for millions of people.
Well, he went and almost starved himself to death because he thought it was bad. And then he's like, hold on, let's get real here. I still got this body to take care of.
But I often say, Heather, I spent 30 years in sales, corporate sales, 20 years, the car business. I sold cars for 8 years. I'm a good salesman. I've been really good. And I say, the universe always picks out really hard things for me, right? And that's because it knows I can do it. Eastern spirituality, Dharma, is a very hard sell in the Western world. And this is my goal and my quest, is to put in plain English why we really need to take a look at ourselves. And, if we constantly, in the end, outwardly, we may present ourselves as happy, but if we constantly find ourselves unhappy inside, drugs and medications don't fix it. I've been there. They wear off and it comes right back, right?
And you feel like crap.
That's right.
When it wears off.
Surgery, what all of these things we do to try to make us feel better or keep us young or whatever. The fact is, we are all dying. People don't always look at that. And we really need to prepare for this kind of ending or this exit, right? How, it must be horrible to get to the end and go, oh my God, I meant to do this all along and I never did it, right? Part of Dharma and opening up your mind is what am I here to do, right? And let's get started now, right?
So I just had this pop into my head because I have my calendar book open next to me where I write down notes. You know how people will spend I've got this much time to get this project done, and they'll map it all out so that everything gets done. Yeah. We don't do that with our lives.
We don't.
Maybe because we don't know what our deadline is, but we know when's coming. I'm like, if you got stuff you want to do in your life, let's put it on the calendar and make it happen. It's like
make a calendar of 100 years, right? And I've got that on my wall. I actually have that now. And it's when I first, going back to kind of how this all started, when I was working on Professor El-Kholi's book, she kept bringing up this line from the Buddha that says, our life is preparation for death. And before I understood what that meant, I kept telling her, I said, we need to edit this out. And that people don't want to hear about, we don't want to talk about death, but, when you understand it, and this is kind of my quest as a Western author for the Western mind, when you read a lot of Eastern spirituality, if you're, used to philosophy or high, kind of intellectually stuff, it's amazing, right? But most people don't read that, right? And that's what I try to do, is create different metaphors that people can, like I have this little thing, this 3D prism of ourselves, becoming, arrival, and departing, right? It's important to understand every little thing of our lives has a lifetime. Once it enters our life, it starts to die right away, and some's quicker. I have a metaphor when we were kids, right? Remember, you get that piece of bubble gum and you put it in your mouth and it's sugary and it tastes great, and then 5 minutes later it's just a big gall of nothing and you throw it away, right?
Right.
I'm working today for a paycheck I'm going to get 2 weeks from now. That's becoming, right? And then I get paid and the money's in the bank, right?
Then it's gone.
Great. And then I see some stuff I got to pay, and it's hard to let that go, right? And I now I have to worry again about keeping that. It's that whole process, right? And that bugged me for years and years. And now I look back and I said, I've never been destitute. As long as I stay busy and do that, I'm just going to stop worrying about this. And whatever I have now is what I've got. Focusing on the now and releasing what I call the haunts of the past and the fear of the future. if you can get rid of all that and just embrace the now, that's what this is all about. That's what Dharma is all about.
Right.
And it can really let a lot of air out of the bubble, right? A lot of people take meds for this, see $100 an hour therapists for this, and keep going. It's the American way, right? I'll just keep going, keep going. Stress is a good thing, I can sleep when I die. That's one. I hate that. I hate that saying. You can sleep when you die, man. Let's go. I love to sleep now.
You want to get there faster?
Yeah, that's it. So
so the beginning of your book, like, I'm actually glad you didn't edit it out, because I think that if people, like, I think people will feel uncomfortable reading it because they can see that there's truth in it. They're like, ooh, I don't want it. I don't want to see it. But if they can get past it and keep reading it, then they'll say, oh, okay, I don't have to stay in it. I mean, it might feel like my reality, but it's not really, right?
Exactly. The truth is a mirror. Okay. God is a mirror. I have this metaphor you'll find in a lot of my books, is that we find the center of the maze is the mind. We find the Minotaur inside of us, and we find him, and it's a mirror of ourselves, right? This enlightenment, there's so many things that you just talked about that make this such a hard sell, right? The hard sell is we have to look at ourselves, right? Ignorance is a word that comes up a lot in Eastern Buddhist thought, and the thought is that we are the ignorant ones, right? It's hard to say I'm ignorant, right? So I've transferred it to unenlightened. It's a lot easier for me to say, I'm unenlightened about that rather than I'm ignorant about that, right? But this is the hard part, until we can look at ourselves in the mirror and understand our ignorance. Like me, myself, I used to yell and scream at people and be angry and all that. And this was me, because I was fostering that. I was allowing anger to enter my mind daily, and it can't come in and not escape. So if we intake anger, we have to be I'm a big proponent on movies and television, we need to be very careful about what we let into our minds. There's so much poison around us. I call it mind poison. I think back, my ex-wife, she used to love super scary movies with blood, and I'd go watch it with her and all that, but there's still visions, right? That these are what we call physical things and mental things. Once they get in your mind, they're hard to get out. Okay. It's some stuff seen is hard to unsee, right? And this whole process of meditation yoga, which is what this book is about and my next book about, is sorting through all those things. We sort up through all 7 of our chakra, from our root to our sacrum, right, which is our creative aspect, to our belly, which is our will, our heart, which is our courage and compassion, our throat, which is our voice to the world, our third eye, which is our intelligence and understanding, to the crown, which is our connection with spirit. All 7 of those are the 7 key aspects of our lives, right? And my new book, Wheels of the Mind, is about the Buddha on top of these 3 spinning lotus wheels, right? Becoming, arriving, and departing. And we cycle through each of these things in our meditation. There's a little door behind the back of the Buddha, and as they go to that departure part, there's stuff we don't want to let back in to come back around. We were talking about circular orbits earlier.
Right.
We want that to go out, right? There's stuff that we want to keep back in our lives. This is what meditation yoga is. People think yoga, down dogs and this. In the beginning, thousands of years ago, yoga was mind exercises. Over time, it's developed into something that we think about very different. Union of the science of the supreme. Yogam, yoga, union of the science of the supreme. If you think about that, it's our mental union with the science of the supreme, which is that God spirit central, and it's the connection with all that. It's a very big thing, and it takes a while to get certain things out of your mind. Things I used to say, right, that hurt people. I don't say those anymore. And namaste every time I get through a meditation. Mm-hmm. Me, I like to talk a lot. When I get to the throat chakra, right, that's my voice to the world. I step very lightly. What did I say yesterday? And man, now, Heather, this is the God. When I say something, or maybe have a few too many beers or whatever, and let something slip out into the world, I know that goes out into the world and affects other people, and I have to deal with that sometimes. Luckily, if it's something small for a couple days, sometimes for a very long time to get that back out, right? So this is a personal awareness using our own intellect and reason to develop ourselves into to higher enlightened human beings, right? And
Right.
we can only ascend from there. And to your earlier point, there's really nobody that can do it for us but us, and we have to take responsibility for that, right?
Right.
One of my favorite philosophers, Jean-Paul Sartre, had a very simple concept called facticity and transcendence. Okay, the facticity of my life, maybe it's not my fault or my problem if I was abused or I was brought up here, I wasn't raised in a good neighbor, or whatever it is, right? Whatever that hang up is of my life may not be my fault, but it is my problem, right? I can either carry that with me as I trudge along through my life, or I can leave it here and go somewhere else. That's transcendence, right? Somewhere along the line, we have to let go of we have to first understand our hangups and then find a way to let them go. Meditation yoga is a great way to let that stuff go and kind of become our own psychotherapist, right? The god Apollo, thousands of years ago, always spent his whole life on a quest to learn the secret of life, the ultimate question. He went to the Oracle of Delphi and he found it in 2 words: know thyself. Right? We look for all of these answers in the outside world to fix our problems. They're all right here, but we don't know it. It's completely free. We just got to find it.
Oh, man. You just dropped a truth bomb.
Yes, it is.
When is your next book coming?
You know, I am searching for an agent right now. I self-published my first book, and I thought, you know, I was a great sales guy. I can be my own agent, and I just want to write all the time. So I'm about 70 pages in, and there's a long ways to go, but the whole thing is mapped out in my mind, and it's just a matter of putting it all together. I'm trying to write.
So we'll send it out to the universe. Any agents listening?
Any agents listening, find me. I'm ready. I've got an amazing idea.
Joe. And where do they find you, Joe?
Amazon.com, worldwide, wherever you are. It's Mara Dawn, Buddha Rise, The Awakening. Anything you do, if you get the book, a positive review or any kind of review on Amazon is huge for me right now. Right?
I'm not done yet, but mine is coming.
Yeah,
I'm still in process.
That's a big deal. And as a first-time author, I've done a lot of things. I've been an editor. I've been a publisher. I've done a lot of things. I've written 3 novels that will never see the light of day, thank God. But finally, you know, kind of like when I found this thing, it's like, you know, I've been trying to write something meaningful, impactful all my life. And what I've learned is you can't do that until you find your voice, right? And I'm a late bloomer. I found my voice at about 55 years old, but I think I got 8 or 10 more books in me, Heather, and I just can't wait to keep going.
I've got a whole bunch more podcasts. So
yes.
you're gonna make sure you send me a message when the next one is ready, and we'll have a pre-launch party.
Absolutely. It's so cool to meet you. I feel like I've made a new friend. I always do on these, but there's something cool that we have together. Like we both have an attitude about, like, you know, you got to have fun, right, in life. So try to have some fun in there too. Get through those first 35 pages and put that behind us, and then let's get to the cool stuff, right?
Right. So, you know that I always give the guests a final word of wisdom, but do you have any more in there? You must have more in there. What's your final word of wisdom for? First, everybody's going to make sure they get your book and send you some love, yes, and do all those good things. But what else have you got in the chicken trunk there?
Sometimes I get asked that question. It's hard for me. There's so much, but there's in Eastern spirituality, I'll do this quickly. There's something called the 5 hindrances, right? These are the 5 things that hang us up: lust, anger, laziness, skepticism, and angst or anxiety. Lust can be anything from shoes to money to cars to women and men and all that kind of stuff, right? We know where that can take us. Anger, chocolate. We talked a lot about anger. You know, if I accept anger in my life, it's going to come out of me, right? Laziness, we know what that is. Skepticism, right? We talked a little bit about this. We're all kind of made to believe through our educational system, through our political, through our culture, through our family and all this kind of stuff. This is how it is, and that's the way it is. open your mind and think outside the box. It's kind of like you said about those first 30 pages of my book. It may
Yeah.
not be comfortable or easy to read, but read it and look at it. You may just find this mirror for yourself that can allow you to open your mind and understand lots of things. Be open to new things, right? My mind was closed for 45 years, Heather, and it's not a fun place to be, man. It can be for times, but over time it'll get you, you know. And
Yeah.
try to overcome that skepticism and open your mind to new things. In tarot, when we get stuck on something on a card, I say, maybe it's time to say yes to something you've always said no to, or say no to something you've always said yes to. Try it once and see what happens.
Amazing. Right there. That thing right there is amazing. Oh my gosh. Joe,
Try it.
you're awesome. You're
So are
awesome.
you, Heather. It's been great meeting you, and I've had a blast.
I can't wait for your next book to come. Really, seriously.
Me neither.
And I'm glad that I made it through the first 30 pages.
Yes.
Woo!
See, it's
I'm
just
climbing
open
my
from there.
ladder.
I've got this challenge. Even one of my reviews says I have this challenge in my book. Open to any page. People have told me this. Open to the middle of the book. Open to any page. It's a magic book. Start reading and it sucks you right in. I mean, it's not me. It's not me writing. Okay, these come through third eye transmission between me and the Buddha every morning, and my meditations get interrupted every morning, sending texts and emails to myself, and then the rest of the day I spend taking those quick thoughts and developing them. That's when they come. So it's something much bigger than this person right here talking. So I hope you get it. And any feedback is always great, man.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Oh my gosh. Outstanding. Outstanding. Thank you, podcast friends. Send this around the world with hearts attached to it, okay? Peace, my friends. Namaste. Namaste. Have a beautiful day.
You too.
See you soon.
Bye-bye.